Hello everyone and welcome to this GreenBest webinar on how to build a bespoke fertiliser. My name's Jack Baxter. I am a member of the sales team at GreenBest and I will be taking you through the processes to build a bespoke fertiliser. So first, a couple of things to start off with. I should have a couple of my colleagues in the comments. So if you have any questions at all, want to ask anything, want to chat about anything, please stick stuff in the comments and they either be able to answer the questions right now, or if not, we'll be able to get back to you at a later time. Obviously, if you're watching this recorded, then please ask away and we'll get back to you when we can. Coming on to that, so this is a recorded webinar. There will be, if you have to jump out or anything, there will be a link which will be sent so you don't miss out on anything. If you want to watch it later, there will be a replay link sent as well. And also, this will be loaded up to the Academy, the GreenBest Academy. If you want to watch it another time, it'll be there, I'm sure, for a long time. So hopefully hopefully you'll be able to catch everything and get all the information you need out of this. Let's get started. So how to build a bespoke fertiliser. There's a few things we're going to look at and talk about today. GreenBest Ltd, just a bit about what we do and our capabilities, the possibilities that are available. Some starting points, how to choose your fertilizer, how to get where you're coming from, what you might need. Going through building a fertilizer, there's a few steps involved in making those decisions. Just a fertilizer, is there anything else that we do? We'll have a look at a little bit of that, and then some next steps so you can progress and hopefully get some products going. So first up, GreenBest. GreenBest is a bespoke fertilizer manufacturer. We manufacture a whole range of products, granulars, liquids, solubles, and loads of other things. So biostimulants, wetting agents, trace element liquids for a huge range of markets. Our main market is sports and immunity turf. However, we have expanded to many other areas over our history. Very niche, providing specific solutions to customers, but there's a huge amount we can do. Our main focus is manufacturing for the wholesale distributor market. Majority of that is bespoke. However, we do have some stock ranges for some specific markets which are branded by us. And the other aspect of it is that 40% of our export is 40% of our production is exported to, at the moment, 24 countries all over the world. That's always growing and getting bigger. It's anything from Europe all the way to the other side of the world, Australia and Far East and things like that. So yeah, huge amount of stuff we can do and do at the moment. So here's our four main areas that we work in, sort of branded things and then bespoke. So we'll talk about bespoke in a minute. Velvet is our stocked range of branded fertilizer aimed particularly at sports turf. There's about 60 products in the range. Gives a snapshot of sort of everything we can do in terms of fertilizer and biostimulants and things like that. And it's stocked, it's ready, available for all sports turf markets, sold through distributors, and again, sold all over the world. The next range is the Smart Lawn products. Smart Lawn is a branded range specifically for the lawn care industry, the professional lawn care market in the UK, but is markets around the rest of the world as well. So Smart Lawn is aimed at that. There's a range of about 20 products, again kept in stock, very fast moving, very high volume of products going through the Smart Lawn range. And then we have the Florafeed fertilizer. So Florafeed is a relatively new brand to us. We've been manufacturing the products and supplying them for a long time. However, we're trying to raise some brand awareness. So Florafeed is relatively new in terms of the logo and the name. It includes anything really for ornamental horticulture, controlled release products, and growing media inputs, solubles, anything which is required for that market. The main thing we're talking about today is bespoke fertilizer. So bespoke is the huge majority of what we do. It focuses on fertilizer, but again, it is a large array of products and solutions and services that we provide. It allows people to have their own brand of products. It has very specific things to be manufactured. We'll go over some of that in a minute, and the minimum order quantities are generally very low as well. So there's a huge amount which fits into the bespoke part, and we have other things that we do as well, but bespoke is the vast majority of it. So some possibilities. In terms of fertilizers, we manufacture granular, liquid, solubles. Any variation, any NPK possible. There are other things, biostimulants, wetting agents, trace element liquids. So it's not restricted at all to even fertilizer. There's a huge range of things we can do. Fertilizers for specific jobs. Some people may call them nutrient mixes. Some people may call them trace element, things like that. So there are different names, different ways to talk about it and sell it. But essentially, we can make anything which is based on that principle of having nutrients in a product. To demonstrate that, we have currently, this is from my working out, it's not the same across the company, but from what I've looked at, we have over 10,000 products on our system. Variations, a lot of that is just variation on products, slight changes in analysis. It may be the same analysis across different unit sizes. It may be the same analysis across different granule sizes. But there are huge amounts of finished products on our system just to try and demonstrate the flexibility. Not all of those are in stock, very little. It's just the Velvet, Smart Long, and Flori feed ranges which we tend to stock, plus a few other things. But the flexibility and ability is there for us to be able to make anything. Possibilities are endless. So a few starting points. If you're looking to make your own fertilizer, come up with your own fertilizer range, brand, product, there are a few ways you can do it. Here's some starting points. Firstly, maybe copying another product. This might be a product that your customers ask you to source. It might be something that you've used in the past, is really good. It might be something which isn't made anymore. You can say to us, this is the product I'd like. How can you make it? How's it made? What can we do? We can look at that. We can do some research. We can dig into what's actually in that product. We can bring it and tell you, yeah, this is how we would make it. This is how much it's going to cost and whatnot. So that's one place, is to literally take somebody else's product and say, I'd like this, please. Quite straightforward, quite easy. Next position to start might be a specific requirement. So this may be looking at a specific football pitch or a particular area of grass where you need the right nutrients going down. You can take a soil analysis, you can get recommendations, and you can bring it to us, and we need to look at the soil analysis and say, yes, that I recommend applying this, or you may say, I just need this product to go down here. You can be very specific to fit that one pitch, that one club, that one area of supply. And there's many different ways to do it, but we'll be able to support you through all of those. And the final starting point might be build a range of bespoke products. So design your own range, particularly specifically for you, for your customers, for exactly what you need. Encourage people to do something slightly different. So you're not just copying what's going on out there. You're trying to make a difference. You're trying to introduce change, allowing people to compete more than on price. So if you have the same MPK, it's just going to be comparing the two products, and then who's got the cheaper price is what it's most likely going to come down to a lot of the time. If you have something different, so you're branding, you're something slightly different in the product, there are other ways to build a range and design that. So we can do that. We can help do that. We're going to go through some steps now to help you design and what sort of questions and positions we'd go through to get to the products you want. Or it can be much more simple and just say, I need this, and we can do that. Let's have a look at this then. So building a fertilizer, the first step I would say is deciding what it's going to be used for. If we focus on sports turf, what's the turf type? Is it going to be a golf green where it's very short, very high value? You need to have specific granule size and longevity potential comes into that, whether it's actually going to be a granular or liquid. Football pitches are a bit more flexible depending on the level. You can get some much larger granules, and therefore you can play with the controlled release a bit more. Other things to consider would be the time of year it's going down. Don't have the same amount of nutrients required in the spring as you do in the autumn or even winter. So when's the product designed to be used? What results you want to get out of it? So how quickly do you want to see those? That sort of plays into longevity. Do you want to see a green up and growth? Do you want to see like a solution to an issue? So if it's sulfur deficient or something like that, you got to look at what's the product going to be used for? What's your intended use for the product? And then application methods, that comes down to granular, liquid. How do you want to put the product down? Small spreaders with the hands, or large tractor tractor mounted spreaders. All depends on the application method and can be built into the product and how it's designed. So next step I would look at, looking at fertilizer, and again, we're going to focus on granular. So a lot of the things I'm going to talk about are granular, and we'll go over liquids at the end. If we start with, say, a 15, 5, 10, you've got then nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Those are the three main nutrients that are in all fertilizer that plants need to grow. They're not always in all fertilizer, of course. You might have something which is no phosphorus, no potassium. But those will be the starting point when you're looking for a product. This is the NPK I need. That would be one of the first things I decide. It might be you decide there's no NPK required, we need something else, but that would be the positioning. That would be the starting position I'd generally look at. From there, if you do include nitrogen, you can consider the nitrogen sources. This is where our flexibility really comes into play. There's a number of ways to make the same fertilizer, specifically with nitrogen. So a couple of those options are ammonium sulfate or urea. Ammonium sulfate, generally more expensive per kilogram. There's less nitrogen actually in there, so you have to use more of it in the bag, whereas urea takes up less space and therefore you don't need as much in there. You can get other things in. It's also slightly less expensive per kilogram of nitrogen. We generally would use a mix, depending on the product, depending on what the customer needs. We may start with one and then blend the two together, or just have the other end. So start with urea, depending on what the customer needs, what the instructions are, how we want to get out of it, and what's actually possible as well. The other thing to consider with the nitrogen sources is the longevity. So standard release products would be 4 to 6 weeks. You can increase that using stabilized or coated nitrogen. We have our own plant here which manufactures coated nitrogen. Increase that from, say, 4 to 6 weeks up to 90 days, up to 180 days, potentially longer depending on what the product needs, what the product wants. And there's other ways to do it with slow release nitrogen, so urease inhibitors, NMAC, or long chain end sources, methylene urea, NMAX or methylene urea. So yeah, there are many different things to consider about how you actually want to achieve what the product's going to do, specifically with nitrogen. So we've put some Neutron V90 into our product there. Now we've got 15.5.10 with a bit of Neutron V90. Next thing to consider would be other sources of nutrients. So it's not just nitrogen. Everything's got more than one way to do it. I'm going to look at potassium here because there's a good comparison, but it applies to all of the ingredients, all of the nutrients which are going to be in the product. With potassium, the first thing that we would generally reach for is potassium chloride. It's got a high potassium content. It's generally quite stable and likes mixing with other ingredients and other products. So it is very versatile and very useful in the majority of products. There may be situations where you want to have a lower salt index, and therefore we can switch that to potassium sulfate. Generally, potassium sulfate is a little bit more expensive, has a slightly lower potassium content, but it brings the benefits of salt index and variation, and the added sulfur as well, which is sometimes required in fertilizers. So it's just an example of how there are many different things, many different ways to achieve the same product. It just depends on what you want out of the product and how you want to get there. These aren't the only two potassium sources. There are others as well. But they're just an example of common things that we would use and switch between products depending on what the customer needs. Other things to consider would be macronutrients. So the main other macronutrients are magnesium, sulfur, and calcium. They may have come from other ingredients as you've included them, or you may want to achieve a specific sulfur requirement. So if that is the case, then you can tell us that and we can tailor the ingredients to achieve that requirement and then fit everything else around that. Obviously, magnesium is used a lot in green up and colour of the grass, as it's the main molecule in chlorophyll. So that's generally used in fertiliser. And yeah, there are lots of, more than one variation on how to get that in the product as well. So we've added a little bit of magnesium to our product, 15.5.10, 2.5% magnesium with 50% of that nitrogen coming from Neutron V90. So we're getting very close to developing a finished product. The next thing we would look at potentially is micronutrients. Iron's on there. Iron is technically a micronutrient in terms of the amount that the plant needs. It is used a lot in sports turf especially. So it is quite prevalent in products and in the soil, but it is technically a micronutrient. Obviously helps with green up of grass by actually darkening the leaf is the way it works. So you may be wanting a product which includes an iron. You may actually say, I don't want iron at all. Please keep it out of my product. Then other things as well. So trace elements. Again, this can be something where there's a trace element package we can apply. So you can just say it has trace elements in, or it can be very specific, whether that's a 15,510 with some boron in for some reason. That may be what you're looking to do. Or it could be just a trace element mix on its own, or a specific trace element. Very popular as a trace element liquids, the variations on those. So it's the next step is to think about what do you need in there? Is there going to be any use for trace elements? And do I need them to be specific, or is that just a general package I can apply? So we'll add those into our product. So the next thing you need to think about going into the product is other things. So filler. All fertilizer, all material will have some sort of filler in, whether it's actually an intentional filler or whether it's just other elements, other nutrients which are taking up that space. So a 15,510, what we've got there is only 35% of the nutrients. The rest of that bag has to be made up with something. It's a bit of magnesium, a bit of trace elements. However, there's also going to be some calcium, some sulfur that's not reported, carbon, hydrogen, all oxygen, all things like that, which add to that bag. So sometimes to achieve a specific NPK, we would add filler material just to make sure that the NPK at the end is what you want. And the filler that we generally use in inert material just to dilute it, essentially. There's other things you could use, such as zeolites. Generally, these will add cost, but will give you an added benefit to your product as well. And another option may be to do a organic-based product. At the moment, we would use our Onyx plant-based biostimulant fertilizer. You could say, I want to use as much of that as possible, then make everything else up to the NPK. Or it may be you want to use a certain amount of the plant-based with other ingredients around it. So again, there's lots of variation. This is sort of the final choice. It's not something that really is considered a lot, but the options are there. And you would be able to say to us, I need it to do this, this, and this, and this. So we'll have a quick look at liquids now, because majority of that applies in the same way, but they are slightly different. So it's the same possibilities, anything possible. Go through those steps, and all of those are pretty much applicable to liquids as well. The thing which makes them more difficult is that ingredients, some products, some elements do not like being in solution together. So they're a little bit more unstable, a little bit more unpredictable to determine what you can use, what you can get out at the end. I've put an example there of phosphorus and potassium don't particularly like being in solution together, so it's difficult to get high levels of them unless you use specialist ingredient, specialist liquids. Phosphorus and potassium is one. If you have something which has sulfur in, so say you're using ammonium sulfate and you also wanted calcium, very difficult to get calcium and sulfur into a mixture together because they form calcium sulfate, which is insoluble. So those are just extra things which would be considered when making a liquid. It's the same thing. You can tell us exactly what you want. We can go away. We can look at what's required, formulate that, test it in a lab, see if it's actually possible, and then tell you, this is what you want, this is what we can get to, or this is possible, yes, go away and we can make it. So yeah, there's again, a lot of variation, but it's a little bit more tight on liquids about what's actually possible because of those ingredients reacting together. So the final thing to consider with all of this would be the unit size, really. Unit size packaging. If you're looking at what we can do, we can package pretty much anything from 1 kilogram or 1 litre to 1,000 kilograms or litres. Anything in between that. There's other variations outside of those as well, so we may be able to do smaller depending on the product, the time of year, the packaging. Essentially as flexible as possible to meet what you need. So majority of our material goes out in a 20 kilogram bag. However, a lot more recently, smaller units for retailers for selling online have been increasing. So we have the capability and ability to do all of that to suit customer requirements. Our minimum order quantity, you can see on the screen there, is only really 100 kilograms or litres. It's very, very low. We try and keep as much flexibility as possible, and that is part of it. There are some things, that's that's the majority of our products, our standard ingredients. There are some things, if we have to purchase specifically, then we may impose a higher minimum order quantity depending on expected sale, expected volume. So there's variations, but the majority of the time, minimum order quantity is 100 kilograms or litres. And then the final thing to really consider is packaging. Majority of the stuff we manufacture goes out in GreenBest standard packaging. Now, that doesn't mean that it's branded as GreenBest or it has our branding on. It's packaging that we supply. So majority of the time, it's a 20 kilogram plain white bag with a fully branded label applied. That's not all the options. We have other colors available. We have other bag sizes, all of those things, different ways of doing the label. Another option would be to use customer branded packaging, where we are using printed bags, or in some cases, specific bags with labels applied. These can be provided by the customer. They could be sourced by GreenBest. There's a lot of ways to go around it. Essentially, we can help you source the products, source the packaging that you require as well. So again, flexible on that side. As long as it works with our machinery, then not a problem at all. So there we go. We've got to the end of that. What would we do next? We go back to the start and we can build that range. So we've got one fertilizer done, the 15-5-10. We can go back to the start. We can decide on a new use that we want to target and go through those steps again to get to the end point. Just repeat and build the range. Obviously, we can help you. We'll provide advice, suggestions, formulations. We can say what you can ask us what might be missing. We can have a look and determine the extra places that you could fill, extra little gaps. It may be that the product you require isn't an NPK. You may go from the use all the way down to other inputs on this scale here, such as wetting agents or biostimulants. You don't necessarily need to go through all of those steps. The same, you might start saying, right, I need this particular nitrogen source, I need ammonium sulfate. Let's have a look at that and what unit size can I purchase in. Absolutely valid to do all of that as well. We're happy to work in any which way to support you, really. Is it just a fertilizer? Absolutely not. There's a huge amount of other things that we manufacture and supply. I've talked about trace elements quite a lot, but it is important that specific trace elements, mixes trace elements, including those in standard products. Going through this, wetting agents, soil conditioners, environmental remediation projects we've worked on in the past, anaerobic digestion. So anaerobic digestion might not be considered fertilizers. They may just be considered nutrient mixes. But we do provide things into that industry at the moment and have the ability to mix very bespoke, very specific things for customers. Specific blended material. So it doesn't necessarily need to be fertilizer. We've often talked in the past now, if someone came along and asked us to pack cat litter, as long as it goes through our machinery, absolutely we could. So there is always differences in materials and products that we can put through. And it's very, very flexible at the end of the day. And then with the unique coating material as well, we have our own coating plant. We can coat a lot of things. There's some research development has to go into it, but there is potential for you to come along and say, I really need this coated, or do you coat this, or is it possible to do that? And then we can go through all of those decisions and processes to see whether it's possible and get the solutions that our customers require. Again, it's all just focusing on that flexibility. So next steps, very, very simple. If hopefully you've been inspired by some things in this webinar and you want to get in contact and build your own fertilizer range, then please either drop us an email, give us a call on the number, then you can talk to a member of the sales team. You've got me, Simon, Daisy, and James there. We will be happy to help and build your brand, build your product range, and help you get to where you want to be. And this is just a little bit about the GreenBest Academy. So there are a lot more resources on there. As you can see on the left, there's a number of webinars we've done over the past bit of time. They're all available for free on the Academy. It's a great resource which we're building on. We're going to add more and more courses. So all the webinars get uploaded there, and you can see them there for free. There are then paid courses which you can use. Potentially, if you're one of our customers, you may be able to get a discount code for those. And there's a huge amount of knowledge which we're putting up there and making available for our customers to support them and help them grow. So thank you very much. As I mentioned, if you have any questions at all, you want to build a product range, then please get in touch at the email address or phone number there. Head on to our website to get some more information. As I say, there's plenty of webinars up there which you can have a look at. Hopefully all of your questions have been answered in the comments. If there's anything left, then we'll get in touch with you and answer that as soon as possible. Thank you very much. I've been Jack Baxter, and I hope you have a great day.